how do I prepare for training? The master replied, think of me as a bell. You can tap me softly and just get a little ding, or you can strike it harder and get a large gong. This is from the Tao Te Ching Lao Tzu. If you open yourself to the Tao will eagerly welcome you. If you open yourself to virtue, virtue will become a part of you. If you open yourself to loss, the lost are glad to see you. When you do not trust people, people will become untrustworthy. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Well, it's good to see so many people here. I thought it was really going to be sparse, but there's more than I thought. But they're all over on this side of the room. I'm glad we've got the piano on that side. It'll keep us from tilting over. Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
As Linda pointed out, I think our wild and raucous congregation maybe partied a little too much last night. And they are home watching from the comfort of their bed in their pajamas. I don't know what prompted this, but Linda gifted me, actually it's for both of us, a book of jokes. And then I got to thinking, yeah, that might be an area we could improve on. Our theme for this month is back to basics. And boy, that really sounds like a hot topic, doesn't it? Back to basics. And so I thought maybe that I would grab one of the jokes out of there, but I didn't really get this one all the way. It talked about, and this is an experience. I was going to get my son some camouflage gear, for Christmas. I thought it'd be a good idea. So I went to the store, but I couldn't find any. I was going to get something to eat, going to stop, and I asked Ann what she'd like, and she said, sushi. I said, sushi? Sounds fishy. I've used my thing today. The title of the talk today is the bomb cyclone. These weather patterns that we're seeing in the lower 48, and they call it a bomb cyclone. And boy, the people have really experienced some severe weather. The three major points, the three things I want to get across today. First of all, that thought is the precedent of all creation. Secondly, that the universe is spiritual in nature. And then thirdly, I want to talk a little bit about false beliefs. False beliefs create thoughts, and if thoughts are the precedent of all creation, sometimes our stinking thinking can create things that we don't want. Well, that was it in a nutshell today. You can all go home. But we'll start. Thought is the precedent of all creation. Everything started as an idea, a thought. Somebody thought of this lectern. They decided they didn't like the old traditional big wooden thing that you couldn't see through, and so they thought of this plexiglass thing that you can see through. It's got a place to put your notes. It's got a shelf we can put a candle on. It's got a little bottom thing we can put a crystal on. These were all things that somebody thought of. So somebody thought of it before it was made. Coffee cup is the example that Reverend Marquita always used to use. Somebody had to think of the idea of the coffee cup first and what to write on it, and world's best dad. That was popular with a lot of guys. And then world's best uncle, and somebody had to think of the coffee cup before it was there. Or the Wasserflasche, if you're German, the water bottle. There's mine sitting there. It's a great idea. It's got a little handle so you can hold it up, but it's got an on-off button so if it tips over, you don't spill everything. Somebody thought of all of that first. The example that Karen Wilson used was a skyscraper. And wow, a lot of thought went into a skyscraper. The architect had to envision all of the things that go into this skyscraper. But it wasn't just the architect. It took the glaziers that made all the big windows and their skills and experience going into it, and the electricians and the plumbers. And it took all of these things together and the ideas of everyone to create this giant skyscraper. But who or what was the original thinker to think the thought that created the universe, that made our world, that made the forests and the trees and the water and the air, the plants? And it is this that we often refer to as first cause. That's what Ernest Holmes called it. As Linda said in the sacred reading, Emerson called it the oversoul. It goes by many, many different names. God, Spirit, the thing itself. Whatever name fits you, feels good to you, we can use that. It's easier, only 3 letters, God, and it's dog backwards. So, it's got a lot good going for it. Ernest Holmes, in the Declaration of Beliefs, this was like in 1927, almost 100 years ago, he wrote What I Believe. And the first thing he started with was, I believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God, and it is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. Now, that's a real mouthful. I mean, I would have to take that apart and think about each individual little part for a while. And one of the things that I like about our philosophy is that we don't have to sit and memorize these things like a catechism or something, that instead that it's personal to each and every one of us. This relationship with our higher power, however you envision that, is a personal thing. And it is personal to you. And what does that mean to you? And I think it comes in a whole lot of different things, So what we're talking about, what is God? What is God to you? I'm going to use 2 more big words to describe something else that's already complex, and that is immanent and transcendent. We often say that this infinite thing, whatever it is both immanent and transcendent, and those things kind of go against each other. By immanent, got this off that recognized academic authority, Wikipedia. Immanent, permanently pervading and sustaining the universe, something that exists within, indwelling, inherent. Immanent, something that pervades and sustains the entire universe. And it exists within each and every one of us. I tend to think of immanence as omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. This power, this thing, whatever it is present at every moment in time, going back to the billions of years ago when the light from the stars that are just now appearing to us through the Webb telescope for the first time since that light began all those billions of years ago. That infinite presence was back all that far, and it is as far as we can go into the future. It is through all time, and it is at every point in space. Everything in the entire cosmos is included within that. And it is all powerful. When I think of all powerful, I remember a time it was profound for me. I watched the ice go out on the Susitna. There had been an ice jam a few miles above Talkeetna. And Ann and I happened to be in Talkeetna, and we just happened to be up on the overlook, and we could look down into the area of the three rivers coming together. And the ice and that big dam that was just above Talkeetna broke, and I don't know how many millions and millions of gallons of water and giant, I mean bigger than this sanctuary, chunks of ice came roaring down the Susitna. The roar was amazing. And I think of that raw power. And the power of that infinite creative force is so much greater than even that. And I saw cottonwood trees that, it'd take four of us holding hands to go around the base of it, just snapped off like a matchstick. And that infinite force is greater than all power. And it is all-knowing. It knows the answer to every question. It knows every mathematical formula. It knows all academics, but more importantly, it knows all wisdom. It is wisdom as well as knowledge. It knows all of everything. It is immanent and transcendent. So point number 2, if this infinite thing is all of that, the universe, and that's with a capital U, we're going to talk about capital U universe and little u universe. The capital U universe is spiritual in nature. Spirit is the invisible essence and substance of all form. I'm going to go back to Karen Wilson. Once again, as she wrote this is so profound. When we see that we live in a spiritual universe, we work with that reality rather than against it. We begin to see how interconnected we all are, economically, culturally, environmentally. And we seek to find the harmony that is beneath it all, rather than expand and foment further separation and resistance. When we recognize that we are indeed living in a spiritual universe, small u, as well as a large U universe, we can change the way we think. God is all there is. It is all possibility and all action. We have found now, as we learn more and more about the behavior of subatomic particles and quantum theory, that the observer has a tremendous effect on the outcome of every experiment, of every action. And in this observer effect, that the behavior of subatomic particles is affected by other subatomic particles and can be affected by awareness of the change in other particles. And this idea, this concept that there is a power greater than we are, that exists with us, through us, and as us in this universe, is common to many, many religions. And I looked up and found a few of them. The Chinese Tao is defined as the absolute principle underlying the universe, small, combining within itself the principles of yin and yang, and signifying the way or code of behavior that is in harmony with the natural order. It's the same thing that we're talking about, just different verbs, different phraseology. From the Upanishads, refers to the Brahman, or God, as eternal, conscious, irreducible, infinite, omnipresent, and the spiritual core of the universe of finiteness and change. So the small u universe is a universe of finiteness. It is finite, and change. It always changes. The capital U universe, referring to the thing itself, God, Spirit, Brahman, whatever name we assign to it, is permanent. It never changes. And it is limitless in every direction. And I threw this one in from the Quran, which is like impossible to translate. For one thing, it's forbidden, but this is sort of it's from Quran.com online. He is Allah, the creator, the inventor, the shaper. He alone has the most beautiful names. Whatever is in the heavens and earth constantly glorifies him, and he is the Almighty, all-wise. We recognize through different spiritual traditions that there is this infinite power in the universe. And this means that if everything is part of this infinite power, this infinite thing, that means even the things that we think are bad are part of that. And this is where the title of my talk comes in today, the bomb cyclone, these horrific weather conditions that are happening. And it's not only in North America or in the United States or Canada or even Mexico. I mean, these events are happening all over the world. There's famine in Africa. There's these events are going on all over. And yet within the worst that Mother Nature can throw at us, it has brought forth the best in human nature. The worst of Mother Nature has brought forth the best in human nature. And the stories, and we've all heard them, I think, the guy that just out of the goodness of his own heart, he figured out how to break into a school. He went and he helped 20 people get into this school. And he saved the lives of 20 people. And even in the school, he was able to make them a little breakfast. And they were there for, 2.5 days in Buffalo, and saved them. They would have been in the same condition as the elderly gentleman that was found by the lady who, when she found him, he was just mumbling, incoherent. His hands were badly frostbitten. She took him into her home. She tried to help him as best she could. She called 911. 911 couldn't even get there, and she took care of him. It's still up in the air whether he's going to lose his hands, but she definitely saved his life, and that is the best of the human condition, and that was brought about by the worst of natural causes. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I've got it here somewhere, and I'm way out of order. I don't know even what I'm talking about. We talk about the certain needs, and Maslow's hierarchy starts with the basic physical needs: air, water, shelter, and it moves its way up to the safety needs. That's the shelter and things. We all need love and belonging. We all need esteem. And then the top of his pyramid is self-actualization. But on these physical things, it's a false belief, and I'm going to get into that more in the next point, that there is a finite amount of goodness in the world. And the example I'm going to use is the Colorado River. Today, there's, a lot of argument going on. They're having big meetings right now about how to divide up the amount of water remaining in the Colorado River. And, Nevada's mad at New Mexico, and Colorado's mad at Arizona, and everybody's mad at California. And we're all fighting over this water when really there are solutions that we can do around that if we would simply apply ourselves. And I think back to some time ago, I was doing a thing, I was reading about trout. Imagine that. And I learned that before the dams were put into the Colorado River, it would flood every spring. And these dams are wonderful because they captured the flood, they allowed us to have more water, and we had big reservoirs, and everything was great. But we didn't have the annual flood. And the annual flood was the giant cleansing of the entire Colorado River basin. The entire basin was cleansed every spring with this giant runoff flood. So the things that we did, yes, they're wonderful. And I'm not saying that we should take out the dams or anything like that. But I'm saying that we can work around that. And sometimes there's good in the things that we don't even see until much, much later. Ernest Holmes said, "When God is all there is no duality. Duality is a symptom of our error thinking. When we live in the allness of spirit, we are living in the unity that is the truth, the capital T truth." And you see, that's the same thing that Lao Tzu was saying. When you do not trust people, people will become untrustworthy. But when we live in an allness of spirit, when we are living in that, in alignment with that thing that is all powerful, that is the creator of all of everything, we're living in the unity that is the capital T truth. Okay, final point, false beliefs. False beliefs have hindered our understanding of the spiritual nature of the universe. Capital U and small u, universe. And I just talked about Maslow's hierarchy. And it is this false belief that our good is finite. And it is not. We may have to learn how to manage it properly. We may have to learn a lot of things about how to do it, but our good is not finite. That false belief in the limited nature is the cause of wars. People are fighting today because they think that there's not enough food in the world. Where if we just quit bombing the farmlands, we'd have more food. You know, and there are dozens and dozens of examples like that. That's only on the lowest level of Maslow's hierarchy. On a higher level, when we get into the self-actualization and our own ability to value ourselves, our own self-esteem, we fall into a false belief that we are somehow defective, that we were made broken, that we were made missing some important parts. I think part of it is from older religions that taught and believed that they could control people by giving them salvation. And in order to do that, they had to convince them of this original sin, this idea that they were born defective. And nothing could be further from the truth. This infinite creative force that made all of these things, the farthest away things we can see in the Webb telescope, from all of the things, it made everything perfectly. It made the Colorado River to flush every year. It did all of these wonderful things. It did everything perfect except you. You are the one mistake that infinite creative, no, that's absurd. You, each and every one of you here today, each and every one of you that are watching live now, each of you that are watching later on Facebook or on YouTube, you are perfect just as you are. You may have to change a few things. You may have to rethink how you do some things. But you are a perfect expression of the Most High. here and now. So here's my takeaway. It's late. Oh my goodness. As you step into this new year, I invite you to look for God, Spirit, Source, Brahma, whatever name you choose, in your daily life. Look for that in your daily life. Pay attention to the small moments that make your heart lighter. Dog chasing a mouse on the trail. Examine your world with curiosity to track it back to that first cause. What came before what you're seeing? What came before what appears before you? Take note as well of what feels like oneness to you, connection with one another. When are those small, light moments of peace? Perhaps it's reading a spiritual passage, going for a walk. Maybe it's going to a meeting. It could be catching a sunrise or a sunset, or taking time for quiet reflection. Notice where God, Spirit, capital U, universe, is in your life right now. Pay attention to how it speaks in your life right now. And so it is with an awareness of the power and the presence of that infinite creative force in our lives that I invite you to join me, the practitioners, all of you, to join me in recognizing our own inherent perfection. We recognize we make mistakes. We wouldn't be human without it. But we can grow past those. We can learn from mistakes and we can get better. That is our job. And we know that there are things like disease in this world, and we can learn from this. We know that there is lack and limitation, but it is not our nature. We know that there are times when there is less paycheck than there is month. But that does not mean that we don't live in an infinite universe that is ready to supply us. And sometimes we can feel separate. We can feel separate from one another and separate from God. But we can never, ever be separate from each other or from God. For each and every one of us are expressions of that creative force, expressions of God. We are all truly connected. We are one, and we are one with God. And so we just give thanks. We give thanks for this awareness. We give thanks for the power and the presence of God in our lives. And now we can quit worrying. We can step back, we can let it go, we can let it be, and we can allow that divine current to flow through us on and out. All praises be unto the one, and so it is.